Hello everybody and welcome to today's GTE Showdown. Now today we have the BMW M8 GTE up against the Porsche 911 RSR. Now both of these cars are in direct competition with each other as they are both in the IMSA Sports Car Championship and they share the grid in the iRacing Le Mans series. So now we have the new tyre model. I wanted to see how they stack up against each other on track. To find out I took the cars around 3 different tracks. I done 10 laps and recorded the quickest times. Now the fuel usage and track temperature was exactly the same and I was running baseline setups in both of the cars. Although it's not the best setup, to me it reveals the car's strengths and weaknesses much more clearly than disguising it with a good setup. Daytona Speedway should in theory suit the BMW more due to it being a long powerhouse track. However, straight away it was clear that the Porsche was better on the brakes. So the infield section suited the Porsche much more than the BMW. Due to the extra weight of the BMW, it required a little bit more force to get the car stopped. However, because of the weight, the car felt a lot more planted than what the Porsche did. The Porsche was light and under braking felt quite lively. As we come towards the end of the infield section, you can see that we're actually ahead in the Porsche by looking at the cones on the right hand side of the track. This is to be expected, but now that we reach the banking section, you can expect the BMW to start clawing some time back. As we come to the end of the first straight, if you look at the cones on the left hand side of the track, you can actually see we are now ahead in the BMW. So this shows that the BMW is a much quicker car in a straight line than the Porsche. Any hard work in the Porsche on the infield section has soon been taken away by the top speed of the BMW. As we come towards the end of the lap, you can see the BMW just pips the Porsche. So this is all down to the top speed of the BMW. The Porsche handled slightly better on the infield section, but it wasn't enough to pull away from the BMW over the course of a lap. So BMW wins the first round around Daytona, which is primarily a high speed track. So this backs up evidence that the BMW is a much quicker car in a straight line. However, now we're going to take the cars around Interlagos. In theory, this should suit the Porsche due to the tricky infield section. Straight away I could notice the Porsche was easier to get stopped and turned into the first few corners. This allowed it to pull away down the back straight. This reduced any advantage the BMW had in top speed. As we come up to the turn 4, you can see by the green marshal post on the right hand side, the Porsche is actually ahead. Now as we come into the infield section, this is where the BMW's downfall became quite clear. There's no denying that it is a big and heavy car, and it felt quite hard to get the car turned in. It just felt slow and a bit sluggish. The Porsche, however, is much lighter, and although it carries a great corner speed, I found the lightness of it to be quite difficult to handle. The steering of the BMW felt slow and sluggish in comparison to the Porsche. One thing I did notice with the Porsche is the trail braking was really difficult. Under any braking, the back end was quite lively, so it took a bit of practice to learn how to deal with this. As we come to the end of the infield section, looking at the blue tarmac on the right, you can see the Porsche has built a big lead over the BMW on the infield section. Now despite it feeling harder to drive, it was actually a lot quicker than the BMW, so it just shows the cornering ability of the Porsche is far superior to that of the BMW. As we come up to cross the line, you can see that the top speed of the BMW wasn't enough to claw back any time lost on the infield section. Now, despite the Porsche feeling slower at the time and more difficult to drive, it was a much better and quicker lap than that of the BMW. So round 2 goes in favour of the Porsche around Interlagos. Now the final round was going to be held at Barcelona. Now this was going to be a tough track to call it on. Barcelona has a good mixture of fast corners, fast straights, as well as some slow and tricky corners, in particular the last section of the lap. So the top speed of the BMW against the handling of the Porsche was going to be quite interesting around here. Now the handling of the BMW felt slow again. It felt like there was a lot more effort required to get the car turned in and stopped. The handling of the Porsche, however, is completely different. The steering feels really light and requires next to no effort to get the car turned in. However, this also had its downside. The car seemed much more lively in comparison to the BMW. You can see there's a lot more steering correction going on between the two. Now as we come towards the end of the first half of the lap, the Porsche is ahead of the BMW. Now this surprised me, as I felt like the first half of the lap would play into the hands of the BMW. It just goes to show that despite the Porsche feeling more lively in the corners, it was indeed quicker. This last part of the lap again showed the BMW's downside. The car felt really big and took a lot more effort to get the car turned in comparison to the Porsche. It took a lot less effort to navigate these last few corners in the Porsche, and it was evident in this last section here with the left-right chicane. I was able to throw the car into the corners with much more confidence than what I did in the BMW. Now as we come up to cross the line, you can see that again the Porsche has actually won this test. Now as you can see, at the end of this test, the Porsche has won 2 rounds to 1. Now the BMW is a great car to drive. It's very quick in a straight line, there's no denying that. Now the car's downside is its size and weight. It feels like a big car to be driving, and it's certainly noticeable in the corners. But the positive to this is that the car felt a lot more planted and stable than what the Porsche did. Now what the Porsche lacks in top speed, it certainly makes up for in the corners. It wasn't easy to drive, but it was quick. So if you can get used to this, then the Porsche overall for me would be a quicker car than that of the BMW. However, I must stress, this is all personal preference. The most important thing is for you to try the cars for yourself. So I hope you enjoyed, and the winner of this first round is the Porsche 911 RSR. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon for another showdown.